All right, this is Dr. Alim El-Bey, and what we're going to do tonight, hopefully y'all can hear me. All right, we're going to go on and get into tonight's discussion, which is dealing with law. All right, that's what we're going to be dealing with tonight. This is the Think Tank weekly information that deals with pale supremacy, oppression, suppression, depression, and we finding solutions. All right, finding solutions. So tonight we're going to deal with law. Since the majority of people don't know law, let's get into that information. All right, so what we wanted to talk about and discuss tonight is really dealing with universal law. All right, dealing with what they refer to as constitutional law, common sense law or common law, amorality law, maritime law, equity law, all these things. We're going to deal with everything that we possibly can. All right, so let's first deal with universal law, which is actually natural law. All right, and basically natural law is law which necessarily agrees with the nature and the state of man. Basically, without observation, even of its maxims, the peace and happiness of society can never be preserved. All right. So, even without observing the maxims of natural law, society can never be peaceful and happy. So, you must abide by natural law. Knowledge of natural law may be obtained merely by the light of reason. All right. If the individual has good reasoning factors. And basically from the facts of the essential agreeableness with the constitution of human nature, natural law exists regardless of whether it's enacted as positive law. All right, so although there may be instances where natural law cannot be judicially enforced. Now this is according to Barron's Law Dictionary, 3rd edition. Now, that means a natural law, all right, which is part of universal law. And universal law, of course, are the 7 maxims of what we refer to as the laws of Tahuti, all right, or what we call the 7 universal principles. And you have mentalism, which is the mind, and all is mind, and everything in the universe is mental. Everything is energy. You have the law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. You have vibration. Nothing is stationary. Everything vibrates. Everything gives off thought, light, color, sound. All right. Polarity. Everything has a double, or everything has its opposite. So thus is extremes meet. Rhythm, all is ebb and flow, is demonstrated by action and reaction, advance and recoil. You have cause and effect, which is karma. What goes around comes around. You reap what you sow. Nothing happens by chance. Everything happens according to law. Remember, this is what Morpheus told Neo in Matrix, all right, in the second Matrix, when they met with individuals, all right, when they met with individuals, the Frenchmen, and they didn't get what they thought they came for, whatever the case was. At least Neo and Trinity thought so. And Morpheus had to basically say just that. Everything happened according to law. Everything happened just as it was. Next, you have sex or generation, which generation is manifested in everything. Everything is animated or inanimated. Everything is masculine or feminine. All right. And these are the 7 principles of Tahuti. Very strong principles. And so these universal principles correlate to the natural law in which that we just spoke about. And so that means you yourself, you must be a natural person. So a natural person is a human being as opposed to an artificial or fictitious persons, such as corporations. So the phrase natural person is not included in corporate entities necessarily, even though there's at times when they have treated corporations as natural persons, but they're not, because they don't eat, sleep, shit, fuck, go to work. They don't do any of these things. But the phrase person without qualification may or may not be included in artificial persons, depending on the context. Thus, the phrase no person in the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause has been held to include natural and artificial persons. And this is why you can't utilize the 14th Amendment, because the same phrase, no person in the 5th Amendment, which is privileges against self-incrimination clause, has been held to include only natural persons, not artificial persons, not corporations, not artificial entities. All right. So since this is a privilege, a privilege is only for artificial persons. All right. Or in that regard, such as a corporation. So when you look in Black's Law Dictionary and you look up, and you can get natural person, a good definition for natural person would be in Black's Law Dictionary 7th edition, where it speaks natural person is indigenous, the original inhabitant of a country. All right, that's the Black's Law Dictionary 7th edition. So you can't be a 14th Amendment citizen by those definitions. And some say, well, that's the sovereign citizen thing. No, it's not. The 14th Amendment was never fully ratified, even though there's claims that it was. But after the Civil War, and after the death of Abraham Lincoln, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, Congress was never called back into order, and we remained even to this day under martial law. And if you don't fully get this information, you can look up what's called the Trading with the Enemy Act. So when you look up artificial person, also in the Black's Law Dictionary 7th edition, and you look up artificial person, it says it's an entity such as a corporation created by law and given certain legal rights and duties of a human being. So it's given legal rights and duties of a natural person, of a human being. But is a being real or imaginary, who for the purpose of legal reasoning is treated more or less as a human being. You can also look up fictitious person, juristic person, legal person. You can look up civil mortuus, colorable law, colored, color. You can look all these particular phrases up and you will see how all of this begin to start coming together, even the word dummy. All right. So like I said, look up Black's Law Dictionary 7th edition, natural person, because once again, it means indigenous. So with the passing of the Declaration of Indigenous People by President Barack Obama, December the 16th, 2010, when he signed the so-called United States Corporation onto that, this gave us the ability as Negro, Blacks, and Coloreds to begin to start now going forth and having a nationality. All right. Many of y'all might not know or heard Dr. Janet Henry Clark state that we are a people in search of a nationality, of history, heritage, and culture. And our nationality must instantaneously tie us back to land. Our nationality must instantaneously tie us back to land. It's no coincidence that in the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, when you look up land, the word Moors is embedded inside the definition. You can't get more instantaneous than that. So, Black's Law Dictionary, 7th edition, natural person is indigenous. native, the original or natural inhabitants of a country, of or relating to birth, natural child. Now you look up Black's Law Dictionary, abridged 6th edition, and look up artificial person, and it says persons created and devised by human laws. Human laws, not God's law, but humans' laws for the purpose of society and government. When you look up the word government comes from governir, which means, and ment is short for mental, which means mind. So the word government means mind control. This is why they love participating in these mind control tactics, MK Ultra, MK Delta, Operation Monarch, Manchurian candidates, these slaves, these mental slaves. So it says that persons created and devised by human laws for the purpose of society and government, as distinguished from natural persons. So corporations are examples of artificial persons. An artificial person or legal entity is created by or under the authority of the laws of the state. An association of persons created by statutes as a legal entity. So when they pull you into court and they say that you violated a statute, they're saying that you are a legal entity. How can you be a legal entity if you are human? If you are a natural person? I might add that no law dictionary defines the word human. As a matter of fact, the Ballotine Law Dictionary tells you to go and see monster. Understand what I'm saying here, all right? And this correlates to this fictitious entity called strawman, or strawmanus homo, which is Latin, and it means a man of straw, one of no substance, put forth as bail or surety. And it's no coincidence that the warden is called the straw boss, and the inmates are wards of the state. So hence they are the straw men. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the straw man was looking for a brain. You might remember that in the Wizard of Oz. You remember that? Well, what's going on with that? What's going on? Why would Dorothy get wished off into a whole new world? Right? She get wished off into a whole new world. And what she sees, and see, remember, this is written by Frank Brown, during the time of the conditions of the United States in the 1930s, following the stock market crash and the factual bankruptcy of the United States government. So the Wizard of Oz was an allegory for those conditions. Okay, so Kansas, they know, is geographically center of the United States of America, the heartland of America, as they call it. No coincidence that Barack Obama's mother was born in Kansas, from the heartland of Kansas. And he wishes us off from out of the colorable world, where he gives you the ability in order to now come into natural person, indigenous. That's why Dorothy got taken off from out of the world of black and white into the world of color. Right? So the tornado came, which is talking about the stock market crash and the whirlwind of confusion that followed, which swept Dorothy and Toto, which is for total, into a new artificial dimension above the solid ground of Kansas. And after the bankruptcy, Kansas, which was spelled Kansas, was no longer spelled that way. It was now called KS, an artificial corporate venue of the bankruptcy United States Corporation, or newly established federal territory, or part of the federal zone. And it operates under the color of law, under statutes, codes, rules, regulations, ordinances, and policies. So this is why you get to change from black and white to color in the movie. When Dorothy get there, the house that she got taken up into the whirlwind comes crashing down. In other words, Just like in 2008, when Barack Obama became president, they blamed him for the stock market crash, which was what? It was, they blamed him, as well as also they blamed us for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, for the crash of the mortgage companies. Remember that? So now in comes the straw man, right? But before we get to the straw man, the house hits and falls on the wicked witch of the east. The wicked witch of the west, her sister comes looking for who killed her sister. Dorothy's instructed by Good Witch Glinda to snatch the ruby slippers, which was in the book Wizard of Oz, read by Frank Brown. They was really silver, so it would have been silver and gold, which would have been what we refer to as something of substance, right? So take the red ruby slippers off. She puts the red ruby slippers on, and the Good Witch Glinda tells her the place that she needs to go is the Yellow Brick Road to go see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, right? So now, as she gets on the road, her and Toto, as in the word total, summation, we'll get to that again. But now here comes in the straw man, first one she meets. And the all cap letters, which is the artificial representation of the so-called American, because you're being transformed from a natural person into an artificial entity. And so now the name is in all caps. So hence, the straw man symbolizes your birth certificate. Right? And this particular whirlwind symbolizes also after the mother brings forth the child from out her womb, the doctors come in like a whirlwind and have to document that child's existence, come into port or come into the dock. Hence, the dock is there to record, to register the vessel, the birth of that child. All right? And the mother is the informant. That's who she is. She's the informant. Okay? So she squeals on that child and have the father to participate in the fraud by him signing that contract called the birth certificate. Everything is predicated on the birth certificate. Right? So what was the straw man looking for? He had no brain. He could not think or act for himself. Remember? Some people without a brain do an awful lot of talking. Of course, I'm not bright about doing things. This is what he said. So when somebody demonstrates that they don't have a brain, you refer to them as a dummy. Well, if you look at Black's Law Dictionary and you look up the word dummy, and matter of fact, speaking of that, why is the word dummy in the Black's Law Dictionary to begin with? That's the question. Why is it even in the Black's Law Dictionary? But anyway, you look up the word dummy and you're going to find what it means for a person who has no brain or who doesn't know how to use their brain, which is a dummy. That's what you used to call them in school. Damn, he's a dummy. Meaning he or she can't think too well. And so he was looking for a brain. That was the thing. The straw man, which is the birth certificate, is a no-brainer. But those who can think is the name in all caps, which symbolizes your straw man state. And remember, we talked about the straw man. All right? We talked about the straw man. Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, says straw man, a front, a third party who is put up in name only to take place in the transaction. The nominal party to a transaction, one who acts as an agent for another for the purposes of taking title to real property and executing whatever documents and instruments the principal may direct. Person who purchases property from another or for another to conceal identity of real purchaser or to accomplish some purpose otherwise not allowed. So a straw man is a front. And I remember growing up in New York, we'd say, yo, stop fronting. Stop fronting. Well, that's what I'm telling you. In order to beat this beast, you got to stop fronting. You have to know the law. All right? That's just what it is. And so you have to also stop listening to idiots out there saying all types of things that doesn't make any sense. Because we know that the all caps name falls outside the rules of English grammar, which authorizes the use of a capitalized letter only for a very limited number of well-defined uses. For example, when you go to the graveyard, the name is spelled in all caps. Why? Because they are deceased. They're no longer here physically, embodied. So therefore, their name is spelled in all caps. So that's where you find the name in all caps. It's in the graveyard. Civil mortuus. Civil mortuus. Civically dead, dead in the view of the law. The condition of one who has lost his civil rights and capacity and is accounted dead in law. This is razor versus razor. All right, this is Blackstone Dictionary, 4th edition, civil mortuus. So, dead in the view of the law. And it says also the condition of one who has lost her civil rights and capacities. This is why Martin Luther King was fighting for civil rights, believing that he would get it from being civil mortuus. But if he would have just fought for human rights, because by the time he came on the scene, the human rights laws was already in place from the United Nations. 1948, you had the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But instead of going international, he went national in order to try to fight civil rights. And this is why the government had to step in and gain sovereignty over the states, just like they had to during the time of Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War. But if you look up in Full Life, which is also in Blackstone Dictionary, Deluxe Edition, page 895, it says, continue in both physical and civil existence. So in full life means that not only are you living physically, but you're also civically existing. And that neither actually dead nor civil mortuus. So you're not dead and you're not civil mortuus, which is dead in the eyes of the law, or dead in the view of the law. That's the problem. All right, so you want to make sure that you're out of that nonsense. All right, so understand, know what's really going on. Like right here in North Carolina, there was a Superior Court case called Cruden versus Neal, and the judge made a ruling in which that, yeah, it went back to 1796, but any rule that you find or any law that you find on the books, you can always bring that law back. And this is what it says. It says there, every man is independent of all law except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. So everything, all these contracts is by your consent. You consent to them. But if you declare yourself as a natural person from the beginning instead of an artificial person, then you have jurisdiction issues in which that you can address, that you can seek remedy from in the civil side and criminally prosecute in the criminal side. But if you don't, then that's a problem. Like you have also the Supreme Court case of Colorado, which ruled that Colorado Anti-Defamation Commission versus case, and it says on natural rights. This was just in 1962. And it says inherited rights and liberties are not the creatures of constitutional provisions, either at the national or state level. The inherent human freedoms with which mankind is endowed are antecedent to all earthly governments, rights that cannot be repealed or restrained by human laws. And this is what you have to realize is that natural law, natural persons who are indigenous, there are laws which cannot be repealed or restrained by human laws. Rights derived from the great legislator of the universe, in other words, God. Thus, the only way the government will contract with you is if you waive your inalienable rights, or unalienable rights, or unalienable rights, as they refer to it, but it's really unalienable rights, and agree to be under their jurisdiction. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. So you have to know the difference between a council, indigenous council, all right, which what we had, which the Constitution was based up off of, which they formed into what is called a Republican form of government. And as a matter of fact, the Constitution states that that is the only form of government is a Republican form of government. So where they get this de facto government called democracy from is beyond me, because the characteristic between the Republican characteristics versus the democracy characteristics are, so you have a de jure government, and you have a de facto government. You have a constitutional legislation, you have the unconstitutional legislation, you have Article 3 judges authorizing lawful, and you have private entities, barristers, pretending to possess judicial authority. And really they're just administrators or bankruptcy administrators, like a referee. And you have due process under the law, which is a Republican form of characteristics. And you have Bill of Attainder. You have lawful money, which is Article 1, Section 10, which is produced by the Secretary of Treasury. And then you have the counterfeit notes, IOUs, or what's called FRNs, which is federal banknotes. You have the representative government, which is Republican. Then you have the democracy seat of government, so to be the highest bidder or bidder, or bribers. You know what I'm saying? This is what lobbying is about, is bribing. Okay, that's what that is about. You have allodial law and you have feudal law. All right, you have the Bill of Rights, you have the Libra codes, you have the honorable contracts, and you have adhesive contracts. An honorable contract is when you have two parties sign it, all right, in front of a notary or two witnesses, right? Adhesive contract is when it's only your signature on it, no one else's. There's no notary and there's no other individual, like what you do at the DMV or marriage certificate or license, all right? In particular, marriage license, permit, whether it's fishing permit, hunting permit, etc. So you have real, actual law, and you have color of law, which is fake and prima facie, legalities, legal. So you have constitutional law, and you have that color of law again, colorable law, color of office. You have the separation of powers, which is the branches, which is judicial, legislative, and executive. And they all three know their duties. All three of them know their duties and know that there's a thin line that neither one need to cross. But now you have cross jurisdiction violations. For example, police officer pretends to be all three. He's judging you on sight by the fact of giving you a ticket, suing you, because that's what a ticket is a lawsuit. All right, we have to understand what's really taking place. Now, you go to Dun and Bradstreet, being that we talk about corporations, you want to see the House of Representatives of the United States that trades as the Office of Law Revision Council. That's a corporation. Right? If you go to Delaware Secretary of State website, www.state.de.us corp direct web.shtml. You look up United States of America Incorporated, it says nonprofit Delaware Corporation, incorporated date 4/1989, file number 2193946. So that's a trust, a fiduciary relationship with which one party holds legal title for another for the benefit of a party who holds equitable title to the property. So who's the equitable title? All right. Ever notice property deed states tenant, which refers to supposed owner? Well, the United States, based on this information, is a religious organization managed by the Queen of England and controlled under the Vatican. Therefore, all Moors contracting with the United States are chattel property of the Vatican. You actually are Moriscos, you're not Moors. Don't believe me? Go to www.manta.com, manta.com website, which is owned by Dun & Bradstreet. If you research your private corporations called the United States government, you will find that the owner is listed as being Archbishop Derek J. McLeod, or McLeod, of the Basilica of National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception of Washington, D.C. And since archbishops of the Vatican are sworn to poverty, then the bishop can only be named agent for the secular so-called Roman government, or as we say, Roman Empire, which is situated in a city-state called the Vatican, or Papal State. Now, according to the elements of the Ecclesiastical Law 20, it states that the Pope can abolish any law in the United States. Why? Because it is the religious corporation now, a said Christian society, even though it was never built on Christianity. Matter of fact, two said empires. One was said of black nobility of the Holy Roman Empire, which is the Coptic Moors, and the other of the said Roman Empire, not really an empire, but a republic or nation state. And when the said Roman Empire got out of line, the ultimate empire of sovereign Moors came in and nearly shut it down. That is what it said. So you go to this website, Delaware Corporations, and you'll see the Internal Revenue, Tax, and Accounting Services, file number 0325720. You'll find the Social Security Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, file number 2213135. You'll find the Federal Reserve Association, which is Federal Reserve, file number 0042817. You'll find the Central Intelligence Agency or Authority Incorporated, CIA, file number 2004409. The fiction is basically created for the purpose of disenfranchising the living man, woman of his and her life, property, in the pursuit of happiness, for the unjust enrichment of said corporate and governmental fictions. That's what's going on. Now, Martin Luther King got wind of this in the last 3 years of his life. And you can get his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. He said, we are approaching an area where the voice of the Constitution is not clear. We have left the realm of constitutional rights and we are entering the area of human rights. So he knew that we started moving towards human rights. But it was too late, and that's what he told Harry Belafonte, that it seemed as if he was bringing his people into a burning building. Even Malcolm X, all right, you speak on civil rights versus human rights. Even he said it, all right? And this is where, when you find them and they are shaking hands, this is when they started coming together with this. But Malcolm said human rights came before civil rights. You can never get civil rights until you have human rights. Human rights represents the rights to be a human being. Whenever you are respected and recognized as a human being, your civil rights are automatic. No, you have to get recognition of human rights first. The Constitution classified our people as 3/5 of a man, which meant subhuman. not a complete human being. And once our human characteristics were destroyed, completely destroyed, this gave them justification for treating us like we were animals. Then it also justified them selling us. So if the black man's human rights being have been respected, we never would have been slaves here in America, all right, or in the United States. And if human rights had been restored by the Emancipation Proclamation, automatically we would have been citizens after the Civil War. So we must be regarded as human beings. Our human rights must be respected before we can ever be regarded as citizens and our civil rights be respected. So Malcolm said this, or Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz said this in the early 1960s, going into the mid 60s. Now, the 14th Amendment supposedly was passed 1868. So why is it in the 1960s, almost 100 years later, Malcolm is saying that we're not citizens? But yet, Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution states specifically that we're three-fifth person, which is a Masonic code, because you're missing two things. Remember, the quote unquote, you had the scarecrow, which is the straw man, and you had the tin man, which I didn't get to yet. The tin man, also taxpayer identification number, TIN. So you have to, and what he was looking for, a heart. So these two things that you're missing, your brain and your heart, two of which is of substance. Also, if I showed you this information, you wouldn't believe it. And if you heard this information, you still would not believe it. You can't fathom that this could be done to you, or how deep the rabbit hole really goes. You can't believe this shit. It's unbelievable. But this is exactly what's going on. You don't believe me? Get the Black's Law Dictionary 5th edition. And blacks are not considered citizens. They are still considered slaves by the government. If that's how you want to stay, because you look up the Dred Scott case. The Dred Scott case said this case in which the United States Supreme Court held that the descendants of Africans who were imported into this country and sold as slaves were not included nor intended to be included under the word citizens in the Constitution, whether emancipated or not, and remain without rights and privileges except such as those which the government might grant them. So even if you was emancipated or not. So now they bring in the 14th Amendment. They bring in the 14th Amendment now. That's what they do. But that definition right there, or that information concerning the Dred Scott case, sound like you were a slave. Still a slave. And there's nothing worse than a slave with an ego. I told Seti that in the debate that we had. Talking to the audience in particular. There is nothing worse than a slave with an ego. And if you look at the word slave by definition, Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition, it says a person who is wholly subject to the will of another, one who has no freedom of action, all right, but whose person and services are wholly under the control of another, one who's under the power of a master and who belongs to him. So the master may sell and dispose of his person, of his industry, of his labor, without his being able to do anything, have anything, or acquire anything, but what must belong to the master. Deep. That's deep. Because right now you don't have shit as Negro, Black, and colored. You're happy with the breadcrumbs from the master's table. You're happy with just simply what he gives, not doing things on a large enough level. And this is what we need to be doing. We need to have our own factories. Now I'm gonna get into all of this when we get to the labor and get to the economic stage of this information. All right. I was gonna say law to last, but now we got to get it now because a lot of confusion going on. Now, when you look up chattel property, it says chattel, an article of personal property, any species of property not amounting to a freehold or fee in land. All right. The term chattels is more comprehensive one than goods, and it includes animated as well as inanimated property. Now, I just read to you that it's not, it says any species of property not amounting to freehold or fee in land. Fee in land. So that means chattel property is not connected to land. Someone who is chattel, or which is the French word for cattle, an animal, herd, led to the slaughter, sheeple, you're not tied to land. So therefore you're chattel. So as long as you're not tied to land, that's what you are. Remember, I told you that you look up land in the Black's-Law Dictionary, the word Moors is inside of the definition of land. I didn't put that there. Neither did you. So stop trying to fight the truth of the matter. Right? So right now, essentially you're in limbo. Right? You're in limbo. That's what's going on. All right? So let's just be true about it. And in the song, you know, the dummy or the straw man, you know, he said, if I only had a brain. The straw man stated, I'll unravel every riddle from every individual in trouble or in pain. So once one discovers his straw man exists, all political and legal mysteries and confusion are resolved. Now that you know, what you going to do about it? You have to declare your nationality, proclaim your nationality. You have to put it on the public record. Preferably, you won't do like some temples do and just take your information, put it inside of their folders, and lock it away in the file cabinets and tell you that you are a Moor or a Moorish American. They give you a flimsy little card. But yet, when you go back out to the world, you'll get your ass handed to you. Children taken, jail time, if this matters stemming from shit, from driver's license, seatbelt violation, accident, whatever the case is, all the way up to larger matters. But jurisdiction can be brought up at any time. So when you take legal title to the straw man, you give him a brain, your brain. He can protect himself from legal troubles now. And you do that, number one, truthfully, first by way of nationality. You do that through a Foreign 98 trust. You do that through a executor letter or executrix letter of their estate. Okay, this is what you have to do. So you remember the Tin Man, as I told you, or should we say TIN man? You know, the TIN man is taxpayer identification, TIN. So the Tin Man was a hollow man, right, made of metal, a vessel or vehicle. And like the straw man, the TIN man was missing something too, and it was the heart. So both the straw man and the Tin Man were artificial persons. So one symbolizes the scarecrow or the dummy, which is strawmius homo, which is straw man, straw person. symbolize your birth certificate, name in all caps. The Tin Man, taxpayer identification, symbolizes your social security number, name in all caps. So one of the definitions of tin in the Webster Dictionary is counterfeit. I didn't make that up. Go and look it up. The TIN man also represents the mechanical and heartless aspects of commerce and commercial law. This is why you have to master it. Because remember, nothing's personal. It's just business. That's why he's carrying the axe. The TIN man carries an axe, and the axe is a traditional symbol for God. And interesting facts, right? The word ace is etymologically related to the word axe. So in a deck of cards, the only one above the king is the ace, i.e. God. In the United States tax court, emblem uses an axe. All right. Now, what about the lion? What he represents? Well, remember, the lion is the king of the beasts, right? But this one, he was fearful. So it symbolizes the once fearless Americans who lost their courage. So when you think about dealing with the IRS, a UCC constituted corporation, you probably lose a little courage too. Look at Aaron Russo when he exposed the IRS in his movie. And he ain't had nothing to lose because he had cancer already. But you may not know it, but the IRS deals with you strictly under the law or legalities of commerce. And just like the TIN man, commerce is heartless. Remember, nothing personal, just business. That's what you hear Negroes say nowadays in order to make themselves sound tough and heartless. But in the beginning, the Wizard of Oz played Professor Marvel. And in the beginning of the movie, the wizard, that's what he represented, the traveling mystic, the gypsy or Egyptian Professor Marvel. And his shingle stated that he was acclaimed by the crowned heads of Europe, past, present, and future. All right? Wow, acclaimed by future rulers of Europe before they was crowned? Or who was the crowned heads of Europe? Those were the Moors. That's why you see the head of the Moors. Well, many of the emblems throughout Europe, because at one time, the Moors ruled there before there was a massive influx of Europeans, Albions, into those areas. But nowadays, let's say before bankers stole America, they had already, or the United States government, corporation as I refer to it as, they had already disempowered the monarchy of Europe and looted their kingdoms. All right, that's the Rothschilds and their constituents, the Rockefellers. And David Rockefeller just died this past week. All right, so while Marvel was a Wizard of Oz, Oz means international abbreviation for what? Ounce. Money. That's why Dorothy was on the yellow brick road with the ruby slippers. In the book, they were silver. And she had to go to the Emerald City. Emerald City is talking about greenbacks, the place where the greenbacks are made, which is the Federal Reserve Bank. And so the Wizard of Oz symbolized Oz, which is ounces. He was a wizard because he was secretly controlling all the ounces of gold in the government possession, as all gold was being confiscated by law from the American people in the 1930s. House Joint Resolution 192. Look that up. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, June 5th, 1933. House Joint Resolution. Gold will no longer back the money. So you find that before even Dorothy got wished off into that world, the Professor Marvel, who played the Wizard of Oz beforehand, Professor Marvel lectured Dorothy of the priests of Isis and Osiris and about the times of the Egyptian pharaohs. Why? Because he played a gypsy. And sound like Freemasonry influence. Because Freemasonry influences is based on the mysteries of Isis and Osiris, or Set and Osir. All right, so like I said about these slippers in the movie, Dorothy wore ruby red slippers, and like I said in the original book by L. Frank Baum, the slippers were silver. So at the time the book was written, America still had all its gold and silver. In the story, Dorothy's slippers carried her just as the stockpile of silver and gold, which then was backing the currency, carried the country to a position of prominence. All right, then follow the yellow brick road, means follow the trail of the stolen gold, which they claim is in Fort Knox. But yet you haven't seen no pictures of no gold in Fort Knox in quite some time, at least since the 70s, 80s. Allegedly, the gold in which that was once in Fort Knox is now in the Bank of London, on the behest of the Queen of England, as she owns the Social Security Administration. So between 1916 and 1933, most of the American gold was hoarded by the private Federal Reserve Bank and shipped to Fed owners in England and Germany, i.e. the Rothschilds, who was the family in Germany, and then the Queen of England. The reason was that the Federal Reserve notes could be redeemed in gold, and the use of Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, IOUs, fiat money, carried an interest penalty that could only be paid in gold. So when the bankruptcy was declared in 1933, Americans were required to turn in all gold coins, gold bullion, all gold certificates by May 1st, which is May Day, which is the birth of the Bavarian Illuminati, 1776, May 1st, 1776, by Adam Weishaupt. It's also the birthday of the IRS. And Noble Ali did something special because it also is our birthday, May 1st, 1916. It's the birth of the Moorish Holy Divine Movement, or the Moorish National Divine Movement. It is also the celebrated worldwide as the International Workers holiday, a holiday indeed to the wizard and his tribe. All right, so you have under the doctrine of the Emergency War Power Act of 1917, you had the President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, yanked basically the security of gold from the American people. A state of national emergency was declared to exist. And the following is the executive order of the 5th of April, 1933. And by the 5th of June, 1933, came forth the House Joint Resolution 192. But I'm just going to read a part of this. And it says, from President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, to the United States Congress, April 5th, 1933, Presidential Executive Order 6102, forbidding the hoarding of gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates by virtue of the authority vested in me by Section 5B of the Act of October 6, 1917, as amended by Section 2 of the Act of March, 1933, entitled An Act that provides relief in the existing national emergencies in banking and for other purposes, in which a mandatory act Congress declared that a serious emergency exists. All right. And so I'm just going to read this first one. And it says, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States of America, do declare that said national emergency still continue to exist and pursuant to said section to do hereby prohibit the hoarding of gold coins, gold bullion, gold certificates within the continental United States by individuals, partnerships, associations, and corporations, and hereby prescribe the following regulations for carrying out the purposes of the order. Section 1. For the purpose of this regulation, the term hoarding means the withdrawal or withholding of gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates for the recognized and customary channels of trade. The term person means an individual, partnership, association, or corporation. All right. So you can read all of that on your own. All right. So this gets us now to June 5th, 1933, which is House Joint Resolution 192, which says, whereas the holding or dealing in gold affects the public interest and are therefore subject to proper regulations and restrictions, and whereas the existing emergency has disclosed the provisions and obligation which purports to give the obligee a right to require payment in gold or particular kinds of coins of currency, inconsistent with the declared policy of Congress in the payment of debts, and that payment in gold or a particular kind of coin of currency or in an amount of money of the United States measured thereby is declared to be against public policy, and every obligation heretofore or hereafter incurred shall be discharged upon payment dollar for dollar, paper for paper, baby. And in any coins or currency which at the time of payment is legal tender for public and private debts. That means negotiable instruments. What are negotiable instruments? You might have looked that up in the Glasgow Dictionary, but I'll name you some. Real simple: bonds. All right. Non-negotiable chargebacks, bill of exchanges, private bonds set off or bonds, in particular private money orders. Also, so these are just some. All right, so let's look here. So our government struck a deal which traded our gold for FRNs, worthless paper with green ink on it, hence the Emerald City. So our present currency or previous currency, United States notes, carry no such interest requirement. And the public food system teaches how foolish the Native Americans were when they traded their gold or their land rather for colored beads. That's what they told us. They say that the Manhattans, that the Manhattan Indians of Manhattan, right, who was Montauk or Shinnecock, all right, they was given 24 colored beads for the island of Manhattan. This is allegedly what they told us. So I guess what they say is true. History unlearned is destined to repeat itself. All right. So we get back to the Wicked Witch of the West. She wanted those slippers. She wanted those ruby slippers, those silver slippers in the book. Just as the European bankers want the United States corporation silver and gold supply. In other words, the banksters or bankers. All right. So what was the Wicked Witch plan? Her plan was to cover the countryside with poppy plants, poppy flowers, remember? And the poppies are a source of heroin, opium, and morphine, symbolically drugging them into unconsciousness. So she can just waltz in and steal the shoes. Y'all remember that? So this is where you get the crack epidemic. And this is why they went into Afghanistan, was to get those farmers back to producing the poppy flower, poppy plants again. Because heroin now is very big once again in the United States, since they have gone back into that area. You have what is called the Golden Crust or the Golden Triangle, in which that come out of Hong Kong and China, Afghanistan, all right, that you find that they needed to go back into Afghanistan in order to, because 70% of the poppy plants is grown, 70% of the supply of poppy plants, of the monies that the United States was was getting. You get this book called um, Drug Incorporated or Dope Incorporated. That's the name of the book, called Dope Incorporated. Get that book. Dope Incorporated exposed the whole thing. How 70% of the poppy plants is grown in that triangle cross or triangle or what is called we call it the drug trade triangle. And the United States is making trillions of dollars off of that. So the best way to subjugate the American people and still their goal was to dull their senses by getting them hooked on drugs. Remember, your brain on drugs. So the poppy drugs worked on Dorothy and the lion and Toto, the flesh and blood, but had no effect on the scarecrow and the Tin Man, the artificial entities. The two of them cried out for help and cried for Good Witch Glinda, right? And Good Witch Glinda comes in and answered their prayers with a blanket of snow, i.e. cocaine, a stimulant, which nullified the narcotic effects of the poppies on them. And see, at this time, apart from marijuana, heroin, and cocaine in their various forms, are the most available drugs in America. Hell, they legalized the marijuana now like crazy. But at that time, up until just recently, marijuana was illegal. Why? Because it went against the industry of cotton. It went against the industry of many things, because you can make, in fact, you can use hemp to make a lot of things out of. Book bags, ropes, parachutes, but it was illegal. All right, so she now goes to the Wizard of Oz, right? And by going there, they finally get in. They finally get, get the little thing going. They talk to him, and basically says, "There's nothing I can do for you. Like Flavor can't do nothing for you, man." That's what happened. And so the Good Witch Glinda comes and say, "Look, you had the ability to go home the whole time. Only thing you had to do was click your heels 3 times together." Goddamn, Good Witch Glinda, you the one who told me to take my damn shoes, to take the damn shoes off the damn Wicked Witch of the East in the damn beginning of the movie. Why didn't you tell me then that I could have went home just by clicking my damn heels? I wouldn't have had to go on the yellow brick road. Wouldn't have had to damn, go into the poppy field, go to sleep. Have you to come and wake me up and then continue on my travels. What the hell? You could have been told me this. I met you damn at least 2 times before. All right, so that's really the science of what's going on, y'all. And this is something in which that has to be brought to the mainstream. It is getting out there, but it's not getting out properly. A lot of people are misconstruing this information. So when we're talking about Dorothy, the lion, Toto, we're talking about living entities or living beings. But Dorothy in particular, because she was the head of them all, a human being. But like I said, you look up in Ballantine Law Dictionary, it says under human being, Ballantine say only see monster. Neither of the above major law dictionaries define human being, only monster. That's Ballantine Law Dictionary, 1930, and Black's Law Dictionary, first edition. Matter of fact, it says monster, a human being by birth, but in some parts resembling a lower animal. What part is that? Reptilian portion of the brain, which controls the genitalia. which is the lust factor. A monster has no inheritable blood. It cannot be heir to any land. A prodigious birth, a human being or offspring not having the shape of of mankind, which cannot be heir to any land, albeit be brought forth in marriage. So a monster can't be tied. So right now, that's why you 3/5 being, 3/5 person, because you are a monster in your current state. This is why old girl who thought she was gonna be president this time around, which more than likely she is gonna get it the next go round. Third time is a charm, niggas. But Clinton, Hillary, she said that we were super predators, monsters. That's what that means, super predators, monsters. Because we think with our little head instead of our big head. Remember, you're missing the big head. You're missing the brain in that big head. You're a dummy. If I only had the brain. That's what's going on. So, no coincidence that within the Jewish they have slang word for you. It's called Gohim within Yiddish, and Gohim means a foreign nation, hence a Gentile, as in genitals. Also, it represents a troop of animals. In other words, cattle or chattel property. Now you can look this up in the New Strong Exhaustive Concordance of the Bible, 1995. So a goy, which is the plural form for goy is a non-Jewish person, a Gentile, someone who only wants to use their genitals, a monster. So they're saying that you're not civilized, but yet, even in your monstrous state, you are more civilized than most of those individuals, especially those psychopaths and sociopaths that are at the helm of the government. And that's who you're dealing with. So when you was born, your parents registered you with the government as a corporation. And by receiving and signing a birth certificate, and in a few years, your corporation will receive a taxpayer identification number, a TIN, called a social security number. This is so you can be used as collateral for the government to acquire debt. So that's right, you and your labor, time, energy is what backs the national debt. You are stock. That's what you are. You are stock, viable stock. Matter of fact, preferred stock. As a matter of fact, some of you are preferred stock. So when you look at the birth certificate, the value of the birth certificate is unlimited. Howbeit, it's good to put a value on it, right? When you were doing what needs to be done, right? When you send your information to the Secretary of Treasury, $100 billion in silver coinage, 0.999. You can make it more if you want. $100 trillion in silver. Howbeit, how much are you worth? That's the question. Because when the mother informant gave the title birth certificate to the state, the baby then became the property and the slave of the state, a ward to the state. These titles of birth certificates are turned into corporations at that time through the Puerto Rico Department of State Corporations. P.O. Box 3271, San Juan, Puerto Rico, 00904. And Puerto Rico is the territory of the District of Columbia. Right? So the original birth certificate or naturalization record, and you were not officially or formally naturalized. Moors, posing as NBCs, Negro, Blacks, and Coloreds, because every United States citizen is on file in the official record in Washington, D.C. and you can get a copy. And the property and assets of every living United States citizen is pledged, which the 14th Amendment citizen, at least for those who believe that they are, is pledged as collateral for the national debt. And within 2 weeks to 3 days, each certificate of live birth is to be filed in Washington, D.C. And then once it's filed there, evidence revealed that is even a federal children department established by the Shepard-Townsend Act of 1922 under the Department of Commerce, which they don't tell you about because the Shepard-Townsend Act of 1922, when people found out about it, they had to put that to the side and had to come up with another scenario because people was saying, oh, hell no. So every citizen is given a number, the red number on the birth certificate, which is the bond number. You look down in the lower left-hand side of the birth certificate, it says American Banknote Company or Midwest Banknote Company or whatever the case is. There's a banknote company that's tied to you, but that is a bond, and the numbers in red symbolizes that bond, right? And each live birth is valued based on the IRC, which is the Internal Revenue Code, is at $650,000. So the Federal Reserve dollar in collateral, that's the Federal Reserve dollars in collateral from the Fed. So this is why you got the back of the Social Security card, which is called the prepaid levy bond number, or the IMF, which is called International Monetary Fund number, which correlates to the number that's on the front of your dollar bill, or the banks, whether it's $1, $5, $10, 20, 50, 100, whatever the case is. It correlates to the letter. Each one of those is a particular bank, all right? A through L is a Federal Reserve Bank, all right? And most people don't know that, but that's what you're dealing with, right? That's what you're dealing with, right? And that's deep because you talk about Federal Reserve. That's a lot of information, which oftentimes don't never get that information don't never get passed on to the people. As far as what's really going on. There's a good book. It's called The Creatures of Jekyll Island. The Creatures of Jekyll Island. All right, look that up. The Creatures of Jekyll Island. All right, good book to get. I can't remember the guy name that is written by right now. I think of in a minute. All right, but regardless, so your strawman identity is a legal fiction in commercial law. A false person or a front, remember, or corporation. A capital corporate identity, not your real name at birth, given under God by your parents, which is up in lowercase, because that's how they taught you proper grammar. That's not proper grammar with your name in all caps. If you did that on Facebook to someone, they would say, why are you yelling? Because proper grammar is up in lowercase. Oh, I have my caps on. Oh, let me hit that. So your strawman ID was created by the state and created a second original birth certificate for the United States government under the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, which is codes of the law that the Federal Reserve Bank attorney created in order to make you a human slave or chattel property to be used as corporate labor collateral to pay off the United States corporate bankruptcy debt, using your birth certificate as a governmental bond to be sold on the New York Stock Exchange through the DTC, which is the Depository Trust Company, with the use of your Social Security tagging and tracking numbers at your birth. So all corporations are illegal or legal fictions and are created using in all capital letters, name such as your strawman or legal fiction identity on all government documents. So like I said, you look at your driver's license, your marriage license, or any governmental document as proof. So the United States has been a private corporation since 1881. As defined in Black's Law Dictionary, Act of 1881 in the United States, or Title Code, or Title 28 United States Codes 3002 through 15 ABC, and is not one of the 50 states. It says the United States does control the 50 states through your ignorance, no matter which state you live or were born in. That's exactly what that is talking about. All right, so we wanted to, make you understand that, right? That there's a difference between, when you get Black's Law Dictionary, 9th edition. If you have a nationality, remember the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, Article 6 states that you must have a nationality. Article 15 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights states the same, that you have a right to a nationality. So what is nationality? The relationship between a citizen of a nation and the nation itself. All right, customarily involve allegiance by the citizen and protection by the state. Okay, nationalize means to act as bringing an industry under governmental control or ownership. The act of giving a person the status of a citizen. Also see naturalization. But see, being that you're already a natural person, there's no purpose of being naturalized. Because the only thing you have to do is declare your nationality via your national person status. So you want to declare your natural status, which ties you back to natural law, which ties you back to universal law and principles. All right? Your fictitious birth certificate, or your name is spelled in all caps, the dummy, the sham, the fraud, that which purports to be real but isn't, is the citizen, which is a person who by either birth or naturalization is a member of a political community, own allegiance to the community, and being entitled to enjoy all of its civil rights and protections. A member of the civil state, entitled to all its privileges. That's what's going on. Right? That's what's going on. So, if you get, even to explain that better, if you get the laws of nations, which is a private international law between sovereign individuals, families, tribes, courts, grand juries, townships, counties, states, and nations. This has been well established under various international conventions for thousands of years. All right, this is how the Europeans, the Albions in particular, allegedly Thomas Jefferson, who was a Moor, Benjamin Franklin, who actually was Benjamin Banneker, a Moor, who was also a Mason, as well as also John Adams. All right, they went to the Iroquois Confederation, which is the Chippewa, which is the Cherokee. All right, is the Cherokee in which that signed the documentation, which is now called the Moroccan Treaty, peace and friendship between the United States and Morocco. All right, Abdul Haq and Muhammad Abdullah Bey. All right, this is who signed those documents. They was Cherokee. This is why Prophet Noble Ali left us the clue when he said he was raised on the Cherokee Reservation in North Carolina in 1886. What happened to be 100 years after the signing of the Marrakesh Treaty of 1786. And every 50 years, they had to document that information. It would been 1836, when you find the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. The Treaty of Peace now goes to the friendship relationship between the Camp Holmes Treaty, or the Treaty of Camp Holmes as it was called. And it was between the Comanche, the Washita, Wichita, they refer to them as, the Comanche, which I always said Comanche, but the Choctaw, the Creek, which is Muskogee, the Seneca, the Osage, the Puckwa. All right, so all of them signed. They had members or leaders of their tribes that signed. All right, some was traitors because some did not want to sign that document. But remember, every 50 years there had to be a sign. Someone had to sign. So now you can see why the so-called Negroes who say that they're Cherokee keep getting put out of the Cherokee Nation every few years. Because the information for this connection piece that we're talking about is found inside the nation. This is why the Albion sits at the helm. These $5 Indians sit at the helm of these various tribes. And if you watch Hidden Colors, the third one, they already told you about the $5 Indians and what was going on with that. They would pay, they get on the Dawes Road or the various other roads that would give the individual $5 and they would get their name on in order to reap the benefits. And all of a sudden they sit at the helm. You can look at most of these so-called Indians, and these are actually Europeans, and they're controlling the information. This is a Masonic takeover in order to hide information. All right, so yeah, I got to tell you the truth. It's just the fact of the matter. Because the only real Americans, if you read, it says American, you just get Webster Universal Dictionary, 1936, 1937. Okay, they speak about it. All right, who's the Americans? All right. Now, if you read the word American, definition of American, now it says of a citizen of the United States or the earlier British colonies, not belonging to one of the Aboriginal races. So who's the Aboriginal races? It says a native or inhabitant of Western Hemisphere, the citizens of Mexico, Canada, Argentina, or Americans, and American Indian. All right, it's weird because all of that is America. But they told you that they look Aboriginal copper-colored natives, right? That's who they were, the Aboriginal copper-colored natives. All right. So let's look at that information. All right. Now, if you understand about American, the Aboriginal copper-colored natives, the original inhabitants of the landmass, this is what all this is talking about. And you can also get 1828 Noah's Webster Dictionary, which speaks on this. Right. But you get the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which was drafted and approved by the RACHR at the 1278 session held on September 18, 1995. It states self-identification as indigenous or tribal shall be regarded as a fundamental criteria for determining the group to which the provision of this declaration applies. So this self-identification at an international level is also at the national level. However, at the national level, it is called self-authenticating. All right. So in the said United States, according to federal evidence, rules of evidence, each state also uses the rule of evidence, just different code. But they tell you what's what. Right. So go and read. Go and read that information. All right. So and see, some of the last things that I want to talk about is the maxims of law. Right. Because people say that you don't need paperwork, but that's not true, because you are hereby paperwork. Matter of fact, if you ask them what an affidavit is, they can't tell you. But it's commerce in everyday life is the vehicle or glue that holds the binds the corporate body politic together. And remember, you are a corporate body politic because they corporatize you. Your name in all caps, remember? And if you haven't got rid of those contracts, that's what you are. At least you're strawman. Now, if you've nationalized, then you have jurisdictional issues in which that you can fight. Of course, based on the rules of Dred Scott case or the decision or opinion of Dred Scott from Judge Taney in 1856, 1857, he stated specifically that Negroes and those of African descent are not citizens according to the United States, nor will they ever be. So instead of feeling ashamed and sad, you can flip it. So since I'm not a citizen, that means you don't have any authority. And since the Dred Scott case has never been appealed and never been changed, then it still stands the truth because the 14th Amendment was never fully ratified. Okay, it was never fully ratified. I know we think it was, but it wasn't. All right, so but this is what, before I get to the 14th Amendment, let me just finish saying this, that when you're looking at the affidavit, it says basically that more specifically, commerce consists of a mode of interacting, doing business, or resolving disputes, whereby all matters are executed under oath, certified on either party's commercial liability by sworn affidavit, or what is intended to possess the same effect is true, correct, and complete. Not misleading, all right, but the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So this affidavit is usually required for an application for a driver's license, for the IRS Form 1040, all right, a voter's registration, a direct treasury account, a notary's copy certificate or certification, or certifying a document, or nearly every single document that the system desires other to be bound or obliged. So such means of signing is a oath or commercial affidavit executed under penalty of perjury. So it has to be true, correct, and complete. Whereas in a court setting, testimony, oral testimony is stated in judicial terms to be sworn to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. All right, so you have 10 maxims. All right, and these 10 maxims basically deals with, for example, let me just read some. Like, for example, the fourth maxim is the truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. So if you have truth, these knuckleheads out here telling you that you don't need documentation or paperwork, the fourth maxim of law knocks that out the box because it says truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. Truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. The affidavit is your solemn expression of your truth. In commerce, an affidavit must be accommodate with an underlying and foundation, form of foundation for any commercial transaction whatsoever, right? There can be no valid commercial transaction without putting your neck on the line or stating this is true, correct, complete, and not meant to mislead. When you issue an affidavit, it's a two-edged sword. It cuts both ways. Someone has to take responsibility for saying that this is a real situation. It's called a true bill, or they say in a grand jury. So when you issue an affidavit in commerce, you get the power of an affidavit. Okay? And see, people depend on your affidavit to be true. And so this is why you can't lie. So an unrebutted affidavit stands as truth in commerce. So your claims made in your affidavit, if not rebutted, emerges as truth of the matter. And so an unrebutted affidavit becomes the judgment in commerce. There's nothing left to resolve. All proceedings in a court, tribunal, or arbitration form consists of a contest, a duel of commercial affidavits within the points remaining unrebutted in the end stands as true. And matters to which the judgment of the law is applied. So in commerce, for any matter to be resolved must be expressed. And so your truth has to be expressed in the form of an affidavit. Your nationality is your form of affidavit, is your form of truth. And if they don't come and rebut your information within 30 days, then it stands as truth in commerce. So that means if you, God forbid, if you have to go to court, you can put your affidavit, send your affidavit, certified mail return receipt stating that you have judicial issues concerning the court case because there's no inter party. Let's say it was dealing with prima facie evidence such as no driver's license. Okay. If you had a driver's license, it was revoked, suspended, or expired, you can state that you don't need a driver's license based on United States Supreme Court case laws. Okay. United States Supreme Court case law states specifically, all right, that you don't need one. And that could be Chicago Coach versus the city of Chicago. Which I'm gonna read just some of them so you can get a gist, of that. You read Chicago Coach Company versus the city of Chicago says traffic infractions are not crimes. People versus Battle says people faced with unconstitutional license laws, which purports to require a license as a prerequisite to exercise a right, may ignore the law and engage with impunity in exercise of such right. Right? City of Chicago versus Collins, it says a license means leave to do a thing when the licenser could prevent. Right? And I'm gonna get to some good ones, here because we got to drop it because all this nonsense that's been going on. All right, so let's read one, or actually some. Here go one. This is Chicago Coach Company versus City of Chicago. This is another one, but it says basically no state entity has the power to allow or deny passage on the highways, byways, nor waterways, transporting his vehicle and personal property for either recreation or business, but by being subject only to local regulations, i.e. safety, caution, traffic lights, speed limits, etc. Travel is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurance. This is Chicago Coach versus the city of Chicago, United States Supreme Court case law. So you can use that in what is known as your countersuit. In your countersuit or counterclaim, you can put that United States Supreme Court case law in which that states that it's not required for you to have a driver's license. But if you go into court and you consent and you say, do you understand the charge of being brought up against you? And you shake your head like this, yeah, then you don't get fried. It's over. You ain't got nobody to blame but yourself. All right, so we wanted to help you with that because there's people that are going to jail and there's no And basically, there's no injured party, right? No injured party. And Sherrod versus Cullen states specifically, this is law case, that for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party, right? That's what it says. For a crime to exist, there must be an injured party, right? So if there's no injured party, then there's no crime that is actually taking place, all right? So um, I'm going to end on out. I'm just going to end on that note. You have to know the law. You have to know the signs of what's taking place on planet Earth and how deep this rabbit hole goes. You have a lot of misinformation out here, disinformation, and it's done purposely. You have a lot of agents or even Negroes who believe that they're doing good, but actually it's causing more harm than good. All right? This is what is really taking place. So you need your affidavit put on the public record. Either you can go to the Clerk of Civil Following Superior Court, all right, or the Circuit Court, or either you can go to the County Recorder, which is the Register of Deeds office, and put your documents on. Or you can do like what RV-Bay publications say, just put it on the public record by putting it in the newspaper and running the ad for 2 or 3 weeks. And send it off to the 7 agencies. Well, these are things that you can do. Or you can put it on mortgage directory. You know what I'm saying? If you choose to do it yourself. We also help with that process. We are United Watch for Deduct the Money. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. All right? Nearly 20 years now. Over 15. All right? So, you go to our website, www.dramelbey.com, and read more information concerning your rights, concerning the information which they be talking about. And we're not per se trying to get you to follow anybody. We want you to be free mentally, emotionally, all right, physically, spiritually. So this is why we teach everything under the sun. You hear me talk about law, you hear me talk about metaphysics, you hear me talk about health, you hear me talk about all these different vast amounts of information and different things. We're trying to clear up the confusion on which that is taking place in the so-called conscious community. All right. And it says conscious, but yet, there's a lot of things I have to say, about if it's really conscious or not. Right. So I'm just gonna leave it right there for the night. And we're gonna get back and build later on. Hopefully next Friday we'll build. All right. Peace.